Hi, David Vizard here, and you are watching PowerTec 10. In this episode of PowerTec 10, and it'll be up in the corner here, brain fade, I am going to talk about cold air boxes. As a guinea pig, I'm going to use our project ECOBOOST MUSTANG as an example to work with. However, the principles apply across the board here. So although it's an ECOBOOST project, it's universal in application. Now let me tell you why we're doing this. Half of these airboxes, in particular Mustang ECOBOOST airboxes, don't work as well as they're portrayed to. In fact, I'd have to say that probably better than 25% of them are borderline rip-offs. That's my estimate. We'll see how right I am after we've done a bit of testing here. But let's see if we can determine what inefficiencies there are in the stock airboxes, and that's if any. Now we should be able to do that quite simply. All it requires is drill a milk jug, a 3-foot ruler, and some clear packing tape. What else? Oh, and some tube. That's it. With that, we can absolutely test the airboxes for efficiency. Now, we've got all these kits, and I'm going to use my Mustang as the guinea pig here. We've got all of these kits available for Mustangs. I mean, they are more common than fleas on a rat. Well, maybe not quite, but almost. And I'm pretty damn sure that some of the dyno figures, they may be quoted kind of right, but they're misleading you to how they came about. They're selling you a cold air kit maybe with a tune-up. The cold air kit may contribute very, very little to the gain in power, and 95% of it's the tune-up. Yet you're going to pay big bucks for the cold air kit. Let me give you an instance here. I was surprised that Stida were quoting something like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was over 50 horsepower increase at the wheels with their cold air kit. Well, that suggests two things. One, that the factory system is a bunch of rubbish. And two, that the factory programming is aimed at safety in the engines running and other things like emissions, etc. So it could well be that you don't need to buy another cold air system. You need to have a tune-up. We'll look at that and see if that's so. But meanwhile, let me get on and find out why there are all these systems. We had one system tested by, and I'll put the name across the bottom here, company out in Arizona, I think it is. And the race system that they tested actually reduced power from, I think it was the stock intake. Well, what kind of race system's that? Do we need that? Now, some people change their air filter system because they want the noise. Hey, I'm not interested in noise, I'm just interested in performance. I don't need to bug people at 1 o'clock in the morning with having a noisy car. No, I'd rather glide by with a quiet, authoritative tone to it. I think, what's his name? Teddy Roosevelt made a good statement here. Walk quietly with a big stick. My kind of guy. Anyway, let me start by showing you some of the moves you can make to get an idea whether or not you need to invest in a cold air system, specifically for your Mustang, that is. One of the things that surprises me is that all the cold air systems you get that go into the engine compartment are black, or worse yet, crinkle black, or worse yet, crinkly molded black plastic. What do we know about black? It sucks up heat. What do we know about a crinkle finish? It has far more surface area, as much as twice the surface area of a polish finish, to absorb heat. Now, let me make a statement here. Think about this. Why don't we paint the airbox silver? There's no damn reason we shouldn't. It will reflect 90% of the heat instead of absorbing 90% of it. Now, I'm going to do some experiments on that down the road, but I have a paint which I'm going to tell you about. You can't go in the store and buy it, you've got to go and send off for it, which when you paint the airbox, it will look like it's been chromed. Not quite as good as chrome, but chromed. Now, let me tell you my experience with having a high polish finish on an intake manifold. I'm going to hark back to my Mini days. And my friend David Anton at APT in California, that's Advanced Performance Technologies, used to do quite a bit of racing, and we raced with a guy out of, oh dear, brain fade again. I'm afraid this is what happens when you get old. Rust isn't a problem, it's forgetfulness. Bill, I can remember his first name, good racer, very good racer. Anyway, we did some tests on intake manifolds. The idea was we were testing length of the intake manifold, and we found, fabricating a prototype, that having the intake manifold about 1.25 inches longer worked out great. Now you might say, why didn't you put it on the trumpet? Well, we tried moving the trumpet up and down, it made no difference on the dyno. Now what we did is, on the dyno we had cold air blowing out of the top onto the engine like this. So it blew air from the intake manifold onto the exhaust. The exhaust was, there was two intakes, carburetor here, right? Exhaust there, and exhaust there underneath it. Imagine it like this. Intake, exhaust, exhaust, exhaust. Right, so we were blowing cold air down on the engine. So the intake, very little radiant heat from the exhaust. Now, we had a plating shop just down the road, so we went and had that thing plated, and then we dyno tested it. Same deal, fan coming down the top. Now, I suppose it was slight, when I say plated, we had it polished and plated on the outside, not the interior, that was left. It was just a raw shot peen finish, or rough shot peen finish. If the engine was a horsepower more, I'd be surprised, but the indication was that it was just a nudger's better. Anyway, we went to the track with our guy, Bill, who was a good test driver because he was consistent. And at this point in time, we had now got the production ones from our manufacturer in England. So we had an unplated one, and we had a plated one, which we got plated in California. We ran, this is on the old Riverside track. Now that'll tell you how long ago it is. That's got to be 25 years ago now, because it's been closed down about that long. They closed it down the year we did this. Well, we found that when we did 5 laps, or Bill did 5 laps, came in, you could not put your hand on the intake manifold. It would burn you. The intake manifold. It had got so much heat from the exhaust. We put the chromed one on. He went out and roared around, did another 5 laps, came in, opened the hood. The intake manifold had droplets of water on it, condensation, where it got so cold. Put your hand on it, it was below ambient temperature by a bunch. Also, he was nearly a second a lap faster. Proof of the fact that getting heat in the manifold is not a good idea. So, working on that principle, we will silver finish all the parts from where the air goes into the airbox, all the way through, and the pipe adjoining the turbo itself. That's what we should be focusing on. However, at this stage, what we're going to do is we're going to test to see how bad the stock one is. And the next step is how bad it may be from the box to the blower. because I have an idea about this Airaid one, that it may actually be the best of the bunch, and it will also be your cheapest option, and used right it will give you some power. That's my guess. Dyno testing will tell.
Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. A good quality cold air kit is frequently the first modification many Mustang owners make, and we don't expect buyers of the hot new EcoBoost Mustang to be any different.
My Airaid pipe has only just gone on order, so it's not here today. So I've taken the liberty of using some of CJ Pony Parts' YouTube video to illustrate my point of their very helpful installation procedure on the Airaid airbox. However, we at this point in time are only interested in the downpipe coming from the airbox to the turbo. Take a look at its shape. You will see from this shot here how it tapers down nicely and has no abrupt bends in it. That's good. So thanks to Bill for doing a great job of this video. Wish I could do them as word perfect as that, but hey, that's the case. Anyway, on with our plot. Okay, now here is the airbox. Doesn't look too small when you first look at it for a 4-cylinder engine, but you gotta remember, this engine draws into about the same as your typical 350, so maybe it is a bit small for that. Let's take a look and see what's inside. First move is to undo this. It's a 9/16 or very close to an equivalent in metric. Next move, after you've undone the clips, you take the top of the filter off, and here's our air filter. Pull that out. The last thing we do is remove that box there. Lastly, to get the bottom half of the airbox out, you'll need to remove this bolt here. I just wind it out. At this point, we can, with a bit of wiggling, getting the bottom half of the airbox back in again is somewhat of a hassle, but work at it and you'll make it. Okay, let's take a closer look and see what we have here. Stock air filter. Now, it's probably something like a Motorcraft and that, which is a pretty good filter. However, these aren't the least restrictive filters on the market. In my experience, a lot of experience, K&N is, that's the red oiled one. There is a filter out there in S&B, looks exactly like K&N. You can't tell the difference until you get a magnifying glass. Don't put one of those in. They do not filter very effectively. You will wear your engine out quicker. Top of the airbox. Nothing special there. When you look inside, there's this damper. A lot of the noise from an air filter box like this, or any air filter box, is going to be pulsations, and this is there to dampen it. The pulses can go through here and back, and each time they do, they get damped out by having to go past these little elements here. I'll experiment taking that out. Now, as far as the rest of the airbox is concerned, it's pretty good. There's a nice radius coming out of here. I don't know if I can show you a bit closer. Nice radius coming out of there. There's not a lot we can do to that, except maybe find out what that does. It can't help the flow, but it may not hinder it either. So whether it stays in or not is whether it's just functional for us. Now the bottom end of the airbox. This has some things that we can do to improve it. First off, You won't be able to see it, you'll have to take my word for it. There's a sharp edge where the air, having come through the filter, has to turn that sharp edge. It's literally a right angle edge to go down this tube here. That and any other angles like it, there's two in there, there's one on this edge, far edge here. They can be radiused off. Now we do have a problem in as much as it can't be radius very, we can't put a big radius on the inside because we'll break through into this area just here. So we'll look at putting some filler on that there so that we can grind through and get a nice form on there. Now you wonder what that is. This here constitutes part of a system known as a Helmholtz resonator. Pulsations come up here, you can't go anywhere, so it comes up and goes back down again, and hopefully this here and that volume is tuned so that when that one goes back down, the pressure wave goes back down, it meets a low pressure wave in the box here. It will cancel it out. Now this will only tune at 1 RPM. However, the resonance tends to occur at only one limited bandwidth of RPM. So what else can we do to this? Well, not a lot, but I think what we have got in mind will help it. The last thing I want to look at here is the how this fits on there, but I'm going to do that in a different edition. I'm not happy with where the air goes into the grill, round and up like that, but we'll take that on as a job to do when we maybe do the intercooler upgrade. Now the last thing I want to bring your attention to is this corrugated hose here. This allows some movement between the airbox and the engine. Unfortunately, a hose like this with all its corrugations inside flows terribly. Every one of those steps there is the airflow sees as an impediment, and it causes large vortices going around. So it actually only flows as a pipe about 1.5 inches smaller in diameter. So we'll take a look at that. This is what the Airaid pipe will replace here, the one I mentioned earlier. Okay, let's talk about where we're going to drill these holes. First, let's take a look at the lid. We could drill a hole there, but then we've always got a hole there. So just to make it easier to root back, we'll drill the hole here, where we can also, after we've done the experiments, plug it so it doesn't show. By taking the pressure that we read above the filter, we get to test how efficient this and the airbox here is. Because all of these this in here and all around the corners down here underneath here will cause a restriction. So we will find out how efficient that is. We'll do that by measuring the pressure drop before and after the filter or the filter location with the filter in and out. When the filter's out, it will measure the efficiency of the entire box and whether or not this bit's doing anything. It shouldn't be. Now, next on the list is the air filter. By having a probe underneath the air filter in this box here, you can get it out. By taking a measurement underneath the box, best place for that would be somewhere like this here, going back. We will measure the efficiency by looking at the difference between the pressure above the filter from the lid to the pressure below. So I'm pretty sure we'll find that that filter is not as efficient as a K&N. So we should pick up some flow there. And lastly, to establish how bad this corrugated bit and this pipe in general may be, we are going to drill a hole down here where this the first large pipe joins it. You won't be able to probably see it, but now we need to take this off to do that, drill that hole, because we don't want bits going into the pipe after the filter, because they will get sucked into the engine and go through. Probably wouldn't do any harm, but there again, it could do. Now, we've now got 3 points at which we're measuring airflow. At this point we have 3 holes in the induction system up to the turbo. With that we can actually analyze the whole system to see where restrictions are. Firstly, here is everything you will need to make your manometer. I'm showing masking tape here, but something like duct tape does the job better. But this will work. Here is some 3/16 OD by 332 bar tubing. You will probably be able to get this from some auto store or Lowe's. This is a regular 1 gallon milk or water can. If it's milk, wash it out properly, because otherwise it's going to end up smelling like heck. Now from this stuff here we will make a very functional manometer to test not only our induction system from where the air goes in to the turbo, but also just how effective the exhaust is. Your next job is to drill a hole about 3/16 diameter in the handle at the point indicated by the arrow. Now you've drilled your hole, feed the pipe, your tube, down through the handle into somewhere near the bottom. Now, it doesn't have to be right at the bottom, because we're going to fill the fluid up to here. You will find that your coiled up pipe that you got from Napa or wherever has to be straightened. Just put a clamp on either end and hold it taut between 2 points and get a hairdryer on it, and then leave it overnight. That will do it. Next move. Now here's our 5-inch mark here. Right. Next, when the tube comes out of here, loop it round below the 5-inch mark, and then using the duct tape as I've done here, attach it to the side adjacent to the scale. You see how this is now moved up against the scale so that you can see it easy. Some tape every 5 or 6 inches will suffice to get the job done. Doesn't have to be anywhere in particular, just somewhere handy. After wrapping taping around the tubing here, the last step is to feed it through this hole here and up the middle at the back of your measuring scale. So that it stays well attached here, put multiple amounts of tape on it, layers of tape. There's about 10 there. Now I don't know if you can see this all right, but there is a hole in the middle, more or less, of that cap. That's there to let air into the tank, but it's small so that it doesn't let water or your measuring fluid out very quickly. We can't afford to have spills in our EcoBoost Mustangs, or any Mustang for that matter. So that's the last step. Now it's time to fill it with our measuring fluid. Here's our container filled with water and a food colorant. To get that color, I used a whole one of these. That's not quite enough to get a good coloring, so you might want to buy 2. Alternately, you can put black currant juice in there. That stains like hell, but it colors water great. Now then, let's take a look and see what happens when we draw a vacuum on there. Let's zoom in a little here. From here you should be able to see, unfortunately not too blue, fluid going up and down the tube. Don't forget, when you take a reading from here you have to subtract 5 inches. So here, at 10 inches reading, we're actually getting 5 inches of water depression. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of this session here. Would have been too long for me to put in the measuring of our air filter system capability. So I'm going to do that in a subsequent issue. Now then, question here. Am I going to use that jug, the blue fluid, a wooden rule and lots of tape to measure the depression in the airbox and everywhere else we've talked about? No. I am going to use this Dwyer pressure measuring deal. It reads out in tenths of an inch. It's an accurate deal. Now you would think you'd be paying a whole bunch of money for this. No, I don't remember how much it is, but it was a bargain. We've used it for years now. So just so that you know where it's at, go to Dwyer, that's spelled DWYER.com, and it will bring you to their site. Their pressure and vacuum measuring stuff is great quality, and I don't know how they haven't gone bankrupt years ago, because their prices are just so low, right? Really, for what they are very low. Now then, let's look at what we're going to be testing. We're going to test the efficiency of the air filter that the car came with. We're going to test a few paper ones. We are going to test a K&N filter. We are going to test the Airaid pipe that goes down and see what all that does. And then once we found one that's the best, we will do standing start to get the 60-foot time, 0 to 60 and 1/8 mile. And we'll see how much a filter takes. Then, probably down the road from that, we will put it all back to stock, calibrate it, that's the engine, using a Cobb tuner. Now I have to say, with my now 6 months into modifying and researching these EcoBoost Mustangs, that I'm beginning to suspect that a tuner is probably the first thing that you will want if you're going to do some work on your own car. Now, I'm also going to show down the road with the Cobb tuner some moves to complement the Cobb tuner that I have never seen on any YouTube video. The combination of the Cobb tuner and this equipment will allow calibration of the engine so close, the difference between that and perfect won't be measurable. You need to be watching. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. Please subscribe, like, comment, and whatever else. Thank you for watching.